You said last time Isaac was not the son of Abraham, but the son of the Pharaoh who married Sarah. Who was this Pharaoh?
Now the Bible does not, the book of Genesis does not mention the name of Pharaoh who married Sarah. However, we can try from the story itself to see the background accounts that can help us to identify the time and the name of Pharaoh. Now we have 2 points here. We have Abraham being said that he was a Hebrew, and we know from historical sources that Hebrews only appeared on the scene of history during the 15th century BC. 15th century BC. The early times of the 18th dynasty in Egypt. At the same time, when the Lord promised the descendants of Isaac, who was the son of Pharaoh, to inherit the land between the Nile Euphrates in the northern Syria and the Nile of Egypt. This was the empire that was established by Egypt. So we have to see who was the Pharaoh who established this empire at the time of the Hebrew tribes. And we see, although that Thutmose the first went out originally, towards the end of the 16th century BC. He went out to, subdued the lands of the Levant up to the river Euphrates, and made a stela really in northern Syria across the Euphrates of his name. However, he came back to Egypt without establishing control over these lands, so the empire was not established. However, his great-grandson, Thutmose III, it was he who established this empire. And this king has a very strange story. You see, his mother was not the heiress. So he did not, his father was Thutmose II, and his mother was not the heiress. So he did not have the direct right to the throne. And Hatshepsut, the heiress, Hatshepsut, who was the queen of Egypt, the wife of his father, Thutmose II, did not want to let him marry her daughter, the heiress. So to prevent him from becoming, sitting on the throne, succeed his father, Thutmose II. So his father made a very strange action. He took the boy, he was young, about 15 years old, before he died, Thutmose II. He took him to the temple of Ammon, and he made a procession, and the priests carried the image of Ammon on an ark, and they passed across the thing to choose the successor of Thutmose II. And they came, the Ammon came to the child, and he chose him, and he took him to the throne. Means, in reality, it means a kind of ritual indicating that he was chosen as a son, and successor. He became adopted son of Ammon. He's not a son of Ammon by birth. He's not, but he became adopted son of Ammon. And we have in the Karnak temple in the area of Amenhotep III, we have a very, very strange story on his records, saying that he was, he remembered that, and he said that he was taken to heaven, where he encountered God Ra himself, and the God Ra took his own diadem, the serpent on his head, the God Ra, and put it on the head of the child, adopting him, making him really the son of Ra directly. So he was not born being not the son of the heiress. He was not born to be the son of Ra, but he was chosen by Ra himself in heaven to be. This is a very exceptional position that God himself chose him in heaven. This is a story. Obviously, it's a belief, kind of belief, religious belief, but he was chosen that. So that when his father died, he was a still young boy. Hatshepsut, his stepmother, was older, obviously, than him. So she was appointed to look over the country with him. However, soon she became a co-regent. She made him a co-regent, and because he was a young boy, she put him in the back, and Hatshepsut ruled Egypt as the main queen, and putting him in the ground, not in the front scene, and he doesn't have any authorities. However, as soon as Hatshepsut died, he came out as a young man to be really a great military warrior. It was Amenhotep III who, after immediately on the 22nd year of his co-regency with his stepmother Hatshepsut, when she died in the year 22 of the co-regency, he marched to Asia. Western Asia, in the Levant, and he fought for 17 years to establish an empire that extended between the River Nile and the River Euphrates, and he crossed the River Euphrates and established there a stela next to his grandfather stela across the river there. But this time Thutmose III did not come back before establishing Egypt's rule in every country with a military Egyptian military station in every, and he took the children, the sons of the rulers, to be educated in Egypt. So when the ruler dies, his son who goes from Egypt to rule. So he is the first. He is regarded by historians as the first Napoleon kind of a military guy who really established the first empire in history between Egypt and the River Euphrates. The first war, however, he did was a major war. When he went out his first war, he went to on the coast of Canaan, coast of Palestine or Canaan, now in Israel, an area called Har Magedon. Har Magedon is a kind of a mountain which is regarded as a holy mountain now. It is in Israel, on the coast of Israel. There was a great city there, military city with walls and so on. And there, the enemies of Egypt, about 300 different prince or ruler, because during this time every city had a state of its own, and the 300 from Syria and from Canaan gathered together facing him on his fight, and he fought them and defeated them, and they escaped and entered the city, fortified city of Armageddon, of Magedon, and he made a siege. His army made a siege on the city, and he retired to the east, to Jerusalem, which at the time, and he stayed there for 6 months while the city was on siege until it was ready to open, and he went to deliver it. Now, on his way marching on his military way, he took the ark of Ammon, the image of Ammon, the god Ammon, on his ark, marching at the head of the troops, of the Egyptian troops. I mean, they believed that it will give them victory and so on. So when he retired to Jerusalem, Jerusalem was not part of the military groups standing against him. It was, friendly. So he went there, and on the rock, the holy rock of Jerusalem, he put the ark of Ammon, and he stayed there for 6 months. And obviously, being the Pharaoh, he had some rituals to perform. So he was the first royal person to worship on the rock of Jerusalem for 6 months while he was there. And then when the city surrendered of Magedon, he went to take it, and he went back to Egypt. Now, this Pharaoh was, this is the guy who established the first empire between the Nile and Euphrates, which lasted for about 200 years. And he had many wives, really. 3 of his wives came from Canaan. He had 3 wives. We have a record of them. They are buried in Egypt. They found the remains. 3 of his wives were Canaanites, and he was the father, really, of the great grandfather of Tutankhamun and Akhenaten, and the Thutmoside dynasty lasted until the end of the 18th dynasty. So I think that this is the guy, Thutmose III, this warrior king. It was he, who was ruling Egypt during the time when Abraham and Sarah, his wife, came to Egypt, and it was he who married Sarah, and it was he, this great warrior of Egypt, who fathered Isaac, not Abraham the Hebrew. So Isaac was not Abraham, the son of Abraham the Hebrew, but was the son of the great emperor of the time. That's why the Bible, eventually, because Isaac was not born in Egypt, he was born in Canaan. When Sarah went back with Abraham, she was born but according to the Bible, the Lord promised the descendants, not of Abraham. Abraham has 7 other descendants, not the descendants of Abraham, but the descendants of Isaac. Obviously, the promise was of the empire of his father. So his father was, Thutmose III, the great, who established the first empire in the world, really.
But who was the Thutmose III in the Bible?
Strangely enough, although the Bible, in this case, in the book of Genesis, does not mention the name of Pharaoh. However, later on, in the other books of the Bible, books of the kings and books of history, in the biblical history, they mention both his name and all his wars and conquers, including his relation with a married woman, with a woman married to another man. His name is there, but I will not tell you now. I will tell you next time who was he.
In the third part.
In the Bible, yes.
Okay. So I would like to say now that Mr. Ahmed Osman has 7 books published: Moses and Akhenaten, Christianity and Ancient Egyptian Religion, The Hebrew Pharaohs of Egypt, The Lost City of the Exodus, Jesus in the House of the Pharaohs, The Soul of Ancient Egypt, Breaking the Mirror of Heaven, and his new book, The Egyptian Origins of King David and the Temple of Solomon, is now pre-selling on Amazon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.